Thanks so much, Jim. I'm just delighted to be here and especially knowing a little bit about your loosely knitted organization and how many different communities each of you are coming from. We did a research study at KU that basically told us that people who attended any one of our events, and it didn't matter what it was, right, what the purpose was, people who attended any one reported a higher level of peace as far as their emotional reaction to climate change. And the determination was it was being in community. So just being in a community of people that get you, that you don't have to explain yourself to and know where you're coming from. So you guys are already on a great path here, and I'm delighted to be here. So let me share my screen, and we will get started. As I do this, I am not going to be able to see the chat box, so I'm just going to invite you. Feel free to put things in the chat if you'd like. Jim, if you wouldn't mind moderating, if there's anything that I said something that doesn't make sense or I need to clarify, just butt in. Otherwise, I'll be happy to answer your messages after. And I might also ask people to go ahead and mute themselves if your speaker is still on. So anyway, so we are here tonight talking about 5 essentials for self-care through the resilient activist. I'm going to watch my time here as best I can. And I'm going to give you a little more information about this, but first I need to start with the resilient activist and our native land acknowledgement. So essential to our focus on deep nature connection, we acknowledge the previous stewards of the land from which this organization springs. In Kansas City, we're on lands once occupied by First Nations, including the Kickapoo, the Kaw, the Osage, and the Osheti-Shakowin tribes. We acknowledge these lands were stolen by the U.S. government from the Great and Little Osage in 1825. Forced from their lands and often stripped of their culture, we bear witness to the loss of these people, their heritage, and their knowledge of the land, and we pledge to pursue ways to celebrate present-day Indigenous communities and to breathe life into those communities by seeking Indigenous knowledge for ourselves and our planet. So to this end, we've reached out to the Kansas City Indian Center, the Haskell Indian Nations University, which is in Lawrence, about an hour's away from here, and have connected with the Blue River Forest Experience to enhance this endeavor in ways that are honorable and compassionate. So, tell you a little bit about myself. Sami Aaron. I am a meditation teacher focusing on nature-centered meditations and grief recovery. I am an environmental activist volunteering with a number of environmental groups, mostly focusing on land use and restoration of pollinator habitat. I am an extension master naturalist. A lot of communities know about master gardeners programs. Master naturalist programs focus on ecosystems, not just the plants, but also the animals, pollinators, wildlife, water quality, a whole kit and caboodle. I'm a nature connected educator through something called the Nature Process, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I am a registered yoga teacher. I am a climate reality leader, so I gleaned a more global perspective on climate change and climate justice through Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Training, and I'm the founder of the Resilient Activist. So our mission is to build resilience, optimism, and hope in response to the impact of the climate crisis. We provide community building programs that offer inspiration, self-care, and mental health support. And that derives from my personal story, which I know Jim heard in the NPR story, but I'll share it briefly here. My older son was an environmental activist. He was working on a master's degree in urban and regional planning and was in a joint law program when the enormity and the complexity of global climate change and all the social injustices that go along with that really overwhelmed him, and he reached a point where he didn't feel like he was going to make any difference. And we lost him to suicide in 2003. The Resilient Activist was formed in order to provide services, support, mental health support, community that was just not available back in the early 2000s. And our absolute mission is we believe the world needs inspired and visionary activists who have the resilience to see us through these unprecedented times. So today we're going to be talking about climate activists, a little bit about that emotional journey, letting you know that if you're experiencing some negative emotions about climate change, you are not alone. We'll be talking about 5 essentials for a resilient world. I'll go into some detail on that. Benefits of time spent in nature, and some of you may know that will convince you how much you need to spend more time in nature. We'll be talking about mindfulness and self-care, and that's kind of the crux of today's presentation. And then I'll have some resources for you for climate grief, for climate activists, and then talk a little bit about our program. So I want you to know that there is a handout, so you don't have to write down any links or anything. I will put the link to the handout in the chat after we finish here today, okay? And as far as the recording, I'll just send the link to Jim at the end so he can share it out to your community if you'd like. So I don't usually read screen slides word for word, but I'm going to do this on this one because it's an important quote from Aldo Leopold. One of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. Much of the damage inflicted on land is quite invisible to the layman. An ecologist must either harden his shell and make believe that the consequences of science are none of his business, or he must be the doctor who sees the marks of death in a community that believes itself well and does not want to be told otherwise. So climate activists, they're a unique group, those people who are experiencing symptoms of eco-anxiety. More and more groups are addressing the needs, the mental health impacts of communities who are experiencing severe weather events, heat islands, wildfires, and sea level rise, but there isn't a whole lot of support specifically for climate activists and their personal resilience. So this was a quote from someone I was in a meeting with right after the most recent IPCC report came out. Yeah, how's everybody doing with this? In September of 2020, the Resilient Activists sponsored a focus group research study. We partnered with the psychology department at the University of Kansas. We had 46 people from around the world who identified as environmental activists, and they participated in a 90-minute small group discussion to explore their thoughts and feelings about the climate crisis. The next slide shows the results to the question, when you think about climate change and environmental degradation, what kinds of emotions do you feel? And here's what they said. Overwhelmingly, sadness, anger, and frustration, right? And then following that is hopelessness, anxiety, fear, and so on. So this is a little different than some other climate anxiety reports that look at the impact on the population in general, people that are aware of climate change. There is more anger and frustration amongst the activist communities, right? Whereas in other places, sadness and anxiety would kind of be running neck and neck. So just to know that this is, it is in the hearts and minds of a lot of activists. Ecological grief and climate anxiety can feel overwhelming and depressing for people. But with the formation of the Climate Psychiatry Alliance and Climate Psychology Alliance, these emotional needs are beginning to be addressed within the mental health community. And there's a whole new set of words now. You have eco-anxiety, constant worry and fretting, obsessing on news reports and videos. Pre-traumatic stress disorder. So these are similar symptoms to post-traumatic stress disorder, but they're based on fear of the future. Solastalgia, this word arose from Hurricane Katrina. This is when people experience the loss of beloved places in nature, a nostalgia for bringing back those natural areas. And then terra fury, leading to future violence over environmental destruction and protection. According to the Climate Psychiatry Alliance, climate instability is one of the most urgent public health threats of the 21st century. So they are making great strides. These two organizations have combined to create a climate aware therapists pledge and the climate informed therapist directory. So you can go on their site and put in your city and state, and it will show you any therapists who have gone that extra step to understand the distinction between providing mental health support for people who very rationally are in fear or anger or frustration about a very real event. This is different than working with people with a mental illness, and it's a different, two great organizations. I just want to say that if you are grieving or fearful about the climate crisis, or you know someone who is, please reach out to those organizations and be part of an understanding community. So at the Resilient Activist, much of our programming touches on the 5 essentials for a resilient world. And these offer simple concepts to help folks understand, make decisions, and take action in ways that benefit humans, non-humans, and all of our planet's ecosystems. So I'm going to talk about these a little bit later. I want to express a caution here. When we think about climate anxiety, a lot of organizations recommend that people get out into nature. And some of you might be like me. My activism role is out in nature, right? It's restoring habitat. It's working on pollinator gardens and trying to teach people how they can eliminate chemicals from the yards and so on. This can differ from people who are not actively engaged in climate action. So, for example, this slide shows 2 plants in our area, which are non-native. This is the Callery pear or the Bradford pear. It was a tree of choice for thousands of newly developed neighborhoods, as was this other half of the slide, the Japanese honeysuckle. Because of its unique blossoms, delightful fragrance, decorative blackberries in the winter, people loved them. And these 2 plants have left their suburban neighborhoods, destroyed millions of acres of natural native habitat. So the problem with this is those of us who are in the trenches and we understand what native plants look like and what invasive species look like, if every single day we're driving down that street and that's what we see, right? And so whether your focus is on native plants or your focus is on transportation or fuel economy or carbon reduction or whatever, there's something that as an activist, you'll see every minute of every day of your life. And there's this little key that flips that says, oh, that's not right. Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's not right. Right. And so we can stay in this mode of living in a place that doesn't feel right. There was a research study in 2013 called Sustaining the Conservationist. And they concluded that environmental work is emotionally laden because of the struggle on behalf of ethical positions and the daily experience of loss and frustration. This is very real. So how are we going to take this concept of being in nature, regreening the planet, and use it for both restoring habitat as well as restoring our own hearts? So I'm going to go back just a little bit to my 5 essentials for a resilient world slide. And I want to talk to you in brief about these, and then we're going to focus on the one in the middle here, regreen the planet. So 5 essentials really came to me as, well, what else is important? Oh, what else do people need to know? Oh, what else is going to make a difference for a healthy planet, right? And over a period of about a year, I was able to cull those down into these 5 concepts that we use for earth care, we use it for self-care, and we also use it when we're leading workshops or speakers bureau presentations for businesses. So we can interpret these in a whole lot of ways. So just briefly, reconnecting to nature, supporting, nurturing, and working with our human nature while connecting deeply to the natural world. This means get out there, really understand what what's the relationship between earth, water, air, healthy humans, plants, whatever. Respect all life is the second one. Respecting other humans, other communities of people that are not like us. It also means respecting the lives of all wild beings, right? All of insects and mammals and amphibians, everybody that's out there, and also respecting the life of plants and trees and water and soil, because they are all living within their own way. And we can make decisions that impact all of those species, all of everybody that's living on this planet. Regreen the planet is a ways to explore restoring natural areas and bringing nature into our everyday lives as a healing tool, and a little bit deeper than that. And we'll talk about that more later. Revamp our spending is this concept of investing our resources in what we really care about, whether it's time, energy, money, our influence, and spending from our personal values in alignment with a healthy planet. And then replenishing our resources. These are tools to soothe ourselves, heal from hurt, see more clearly, engage our strengths, and find joy while mindfully noticing how we can replenish the natural world around us. So that's composting, not wasting water, or giving back water that you use for other purposes, and so on. So replenishing our resources. So I want to talk about this garden a little bit. This is a backyard of mine a couple of houses ago, sweet little native garden in the suburbia. So a native garden is important because of things like, if you like bird watching, birds, even those things. Caterpillars need their specific host plants. Adult pollinators need habitat for nesting and overwintering. The plants, of course, need clean water, healthy soil, and pollinators so they can reproduce and create more plants. And in the end, plants and trees give off life-giving oxygen and filter carbon from the air. In addition, we have all these great benefits listed on this slide. So native gardens are vital habitat to replace our mowed lawns and are an important factor in reversing global warming. But how does this pertain to self-care? Well, one of the things is, and this is all these resources are in your handout, native gardens, nature, tending to the four seasons and the changes in weather, can have a humongous impact on our emotional well-being. So these are just some great resources if you haven't read them. The Nature Fix by Florence Williams has numerous studies on the healing benefits of time spent in nature. Richard Lou's The Last Child in the Wood talks about nature deficit disorder and biophobia, or fear of nature, which a number of people are experiencing. Glenn Albrecht wrote a book called Earth Emotions. He's a psychologist in Australia who developed some of the new language, words like solastalgia and pre-traumatic stress, that explore the emotional impact of climate change and environmental devastation on the American psyche. I'm sorry, on the human psyche. The Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides obviously just gets you out into the nature. Rating Sweetgrass seems to be the book this year by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Her other book, Gathering Mosses, is every bit as eloquent from a different perspective. I recommend it too. And The Voice of the Earth is the original exploration of ecopsychology by Theodore Roszak. It's a seminal book that shows. So we talk about regreening the planet. So now we're back within the 5 essentials. Thinking of the slide of the native garden and all the benefits to the earth that there are in regreening the planet, I want you to shift now to that self-care piece and think about the impact of your being out in nature. Okay, the first thing is your body, your human animal body, will welcome the awareness of the cycles of the seasons, right? So if you have access to a native garden, even if it's just some pots on a patio with some native plants, you will notice the seasons as they change. Different plants bloom at different times. You'll see seed heads coming, and you leave those over the winter, and birds will come and eat the seed heads. And there's this whole sense of the cycle of life, which is real different from plants like, I don't know, Stella d'Oro daylilies that bloom the same color plant the entire season. And you just miss out on that with your own human body. As you inhale the scent of blossoms, you're receiving phytoncides, which are antibacterial and other aromatherapy properties from the plants. You can take an intentional respite from being an activist and just settle into being in nature. There is something to be said for getting out of your own mind and just being, right? We spend a lot of time as human doings rather than human beings, and it can be a very healing process to set aside a place in nature with a comfortable chair or a hammock like this screen and just be there and absorb it. Your heart will swell with each pollinator and other wild creatures. About 2 weeks ago, we're rewilding our backyard, and it was a day here, it was like 7 degrees out. And I went outside to fill up the bird bath, and I saw this dead rabbit on my back porch. And it was whole. There was a little bloody spot on its hip, but so I send my husband out to get it off the porch, and he takes the rabbit way up back by the fence, which we can see from our back window. And the next day we woke up and there was a Cooper's hawk lunching down on that rabbit. And it stayed there for more than 24 hours. And there was this emotional upswell that I had about, oh my gosh, I created habitat for a big fat rabbit, which created a fantastic meal for a Cooper's hawk who was looking for something good to eat. And there was this sense of well-being. You know, it's just a little postage stamp yard, but it really made a big difference to that Cooper's hawk. So you can get that kind of benefit from putting a native garden in where you can see it regularly, because you'll see the life in it. You'll see who you're helping. And you know you're making a valuable difference for the earth as well as yourself. So I would like to invite you to join me on a little meander, a short guided meditation exploring the 5 essentials for a resilient world. If you're comfortable doing this, I invite you to, you might want to turn your monitor off, it's up to you, but just get comfortable. Sit down if you're holding anything. Feel very supported on your seat, cushion. If possible, let your feet be flat on the ground so you feel very grounded. And you might want to just do a little wiggling and jiggling. So these are some of the things that we do as some of our healing and well-being and resilience tools. It's these very simple meditations. So you might feel nice to just do a little neck roll maybe, or wiggle out your shoulders. A little cat and cow, maybe stretching left and right. And then if it feels comfortable, you can either close down your eyes or just simply let your gaze focus down towards the ground. Feel your hands very steady and comfortable at rest, either in your lap or in the arms of the chair. And then your attention to your breath. Let your next exhalation just be a little bit deeper and a little bit longer. And allow the inhalation to just arise, to fill you up, to soften through the exhalation. Draw out any tension, imagining as you exhale that you could release gripping and tightness through your face and your shoulders, through your arms, your chest, and your belly. With each exhalation, you begin to feel a little heavier, a little weighted through the hips, through the thighs, through the lower legs. Take a full inhalation. And this time, as you exhale, drop your attention into your heart, thinking in terms of your activism, climate anxiety, eco anxiety. And notice what thoughts settle at your heart, what's bubbling up out of your mind on that topic today. And I invite you to set an intention statement. You might want to say a prayer, where you simply focus on what the emotion is, how it makes you feel, and perhaps what you would like to receive from this guided visualization. It might be a sense of clarity or calm, or it might just be an acceptance of something you can't change. Take another full inhalation and exhalation, and bring your attention to the crown of your head. Relax there. Imagine that you could soften even the skin and the hair follicles of the crown. And then with each breath, notice how you can release tension through your forehead, your mouth and throat. You feel a relaxation through your shoulders and armpits, a little weightedness through your elbows and hands. You soften through the chest and belly as you release through the pelvis and the hips. Feel the weight of your glutes and thighs as you let go any gripping through your legs and feet. You notice the sensation of your feet connecting to the earth, an awareness of gravity, drawing the weight of your body deeper and closer to an earth connection. You spend just a few moments feeling the support of the earth beneath you. Bring your attention to your breath. Slowly, for the next few breaths, follow the in-breath from your nostrils through the nasal passages, past the sinuses and into the throat, and follow the exhalation from your throat through the sinuses and out through the nostrils. You feel the breath as you follow it in your mind's eye, and you notice the breath moving down into your lungs, filling and expanding both lungs. And the out breath, releasing, surrendering the breath, letting it flow back out past the throat and the face and out through the nostrils. I invite you to imagine your favorite place in the natural world and visualize that you're breathing in the aromas, the fragrance, the scents in that area. Notice how it feels. We move into the concept of regreening our planet and understanding how bringing a native garden, natural habitat into your own home, your backyard, or maybe at your office, someplace that feels like you would have access, you would be comfortable working in it, sitting in it, rocking in your own hammock. And just visualize what that place might be, what it might look like in your mind's eye. You imagine a place where you have habitat, maybe nut trees or fruit trees. So it's growing vegetables, digging in soil. Imagining yourself surrounded by more nature in your everyday life. Imagine that you could step into that place in your mind's eye. You visualize something comfortable to sit on. And notice how it feels. Notice how it feels in your body, your sense of relaxation, welcoming, nurturing. You notice how it feels through your breath. You notice the sounds around you. There's a sense of absorbing the colors, the shapes, the forms, trees and plants, rocks, ground, water, as if all your senses could just open up to receive this place. And then taking a full inhalation, as you exhale, bring back to mind your original intention statement or prayer that you thought about earlier in this meditation. And simply notice how it feels in this moment in your heart and mind. And then when you're ready, take another deep breath. And as you're ready, you'll flicker your eyes open and come back into the room. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to participate in breakout rooms. Maybe we'll go about 5 minutes with just a small group. Let's see. You already have your room set up, so maybe we'll keep that same one. Just 1 minute for each person in the group. Looks like a couple groups have more people, but we'll do that. Let's just spend about 5 minutes in the breakout room just sharing what you noticed. And I invite the person who woke up earliest this morning to go first, and that's the order that you'll go in the room. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. See, but for me, there's this understanding of we didn't get here in 10 years or 20 or even 100 years, right? We've been, as humans, we've been at this for thousands of years, learning how we can really manipulate the earth just exactly how we think we want it. And so it's going to take many, many years and millions of people to make that shift. And, there's this meditation philosophy of, well, if it's not something you can actually do or make a change in yourself, if you spend so much time being angry, wanting to push it away, that's just not productive and it's not healthy. And so that's what the meditation practice does, is it helps you recognize, well, this isn't anything I can do anything about, or I can do my little bit and know that I am keeping on, I'm just adding on to the group of important changes. And in the end, it's going to make that big difference, but it might not even happen in our lifetimes. So finding that meditative pragmatism is really difficult. We just have about 2 minutes. Let me run through the rest of my slideshow really quickly. And then if there's time for questions, or I'd be happy to stay after, you know, if that makes sense too, if people would like to talk more, but we'll go kind of quickly. These are some of our upcoming programs or our ongoing programs. We do have a full Speakers Bureau program, a lot of different topics, self-care, earth care, business. We have a visionary activist program, donations from anybody. We are 501c3, and with donations of different levels, we have benefits. So some of our Speakers Bureau presentations, even up to a half-day private nature retreat, which of course is a little difficult to do on Zoom, but we can do it and we've done it. So I just want to point that out. Upcoming events, we have our inaugural Climate Cafe Tuesday night, March 1st. And then we're starting a 7-month embodied activism meditation series. Each teacher takes a different month with a totally different topic. And that's going to start March 3rd. We have a Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion book club on the second or third Tuesdays of the month. And we do have a Mighty Networks online community that's a kind of a safe response to social media. I couldn't resist this picture. Feel free to contact me if you want more information. I know I love that picture. Or you can reach out to Speakers Bureau at the Resilient Activists too, but we're on most of social media. And I just wanted to be sure you all know about the legend of the eagle and the condor. The eagle represents technology, intellect, logic. The condor represents nature connection, indigenous wisdom, deep earth understanding. And the prophecy was in the late 1990s, the two were going to come together. And that's what's happening now. We need both, right? We can't just win this with technology. We can't just win it with restoring the land. We need both. And this is, in my opinion, it's a great time to be alive. It's a really interesting time, and especially when we have prophecies like this that state that this is the time when these two will reunite to bring our world back into balance and ensure a more resilient future. So with that, I'm finished. And Jim, you tell me what you want to do as far as Q&A, or I'm open.
Well, I was glad to hear you said you're happy to stay after. I mean, Walter, what do you think? I mean, I know we have some announcements.
Let's take 1 or 2 questions now, and then we can have the rest at the end, after the end.
Okay, sure.
Did you want to finish the answer to the question, or maybe because I don't think I'd come back from the breakout rooms about my sort of question about where people here are coming from in terms of the federal larger picture focus, et cetera.
Yeah, maybe you want to state it again, Jim, the question.
I guess it's, I mean, part of this is coming from the ecosystem study group that's kind of a co-sponsor of tonight, and several members are in that group. And we are often talking about scaling up whatever idea somebody comes up with, technical, nature focused, that sort of thing. From an emotional or eco-anxiety perspective, and you started talking about the, you know, I think, yeah, doing a little bit of work in the backyard isn't gonna make it, but it has a bigger, it's a path to connection, et cetera.
Yeah. So, you know, part of it is, as activists, if we're operating from a perspective of anger, fear, frustration, us versus them, and all of those amazing adjectives we could describe about those people, right? And as we even think about whoever is, you know, perpetrating the earth destruction, doing it for money, doing it for politics, whatever reasons we come up with, if we're angry and we're frustrated and we feel like we're at war with people, then that's how our bodies respond, right? Our bodies respond, we get into fight or flight mode. So we don't breathe as deeply, our muscles are constricted. We actually even cut down a good portion of our brain activity. So we only have certain options we can think of when we're in fight or flight mode. We have to make emergency decisions, right? We have to be able to react. What that does is that keeps us at battle. That keeps us, this long war that we've had. Let's just say it was from Earth Day in 1970, right? So we've been battling that for a long time. It's still a war going on. As long as we are fighting and battling with other people, and we're coming from this place of fight or flight mode, there's not going to be an end to this. When we switch into the relaxation response, so now we're breathing more deeply, our brain opens up, we have more ways of thinking, and we become more compassionate. Like, these are all studies. I can point you to studies, and in the handout, there are studies that show this, that when we reach out with compassion to other people, there is a much better chance that we're going to get buy-in, and we're going to get that upswell of change that needs to come from humans, right? It's not going to come just top down. We know that because they're human beings that work at the top, and they have families and they have kids that are learning stuff in school. So it has to come from this upswell from the heart and compassion and accepting people right where they are today, because this is a journey, and we can only operate successfully when we're in a place of openness and receptivity. So that component, though, of I'm not doing enough, or we're not doing it enough quickly enough, or, you know, there's this dire emergency, that's all great when we're in the trenches. But in order for us to decide what is ours to do as individuals, we have to take a look at what's our health. What does our family need right now? What's our financial situation or other commitments that we have? And how do we allow ourselves to replenish ourselves, right? Our physical bodies, our emotional bodies, our well-being, so that we can step back into the fray, feeling refreshed, having new ideas, as opposed to stepping into the fray while we're already burned out and frustrated and angry and fearful. So that was a really long answer, sorry.
Oh, that was great.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. This was such a great session. I'm so glad it was recorded too. So, we have lots of great resources. So it was, thank you so much. It was a great session. Thank you.